Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining me today. So my name's Johnny. I'm a mindfulness coach and I'm a therapist as well, working in private practice and in the NHS from MobGroup today. So we're a company specializing on corporate well-being. And what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on building a personal toolkit for stress management, and particularly thinking about as you begin to move into a career, moving from the world of being a student and a whole load of different stresses there into the workplace and how we might manage that more effectively. We're going to look at the three pillars of stress resilience. So there are these three pillars that have a lot of evidence behind them, are really useful supports to our well-being. So they are a connection with meaning and purpose, so knowing why we're doing what we're doing and what matters about it. Social connections, so how we're connected to people in work and how we are connected in our social life. And then lifestyle support, so habits that we can do that will build stress resilience in the long term. And we're going to do a little practice on each of those, so it's going to be very experiential today. If you've got a notepad, that will be really useful. We're going to do some mindfulness practices and some reflections, so little short practices that hopefully will build a toolkit that you can take forward into your working career. And then we'll have some Q&A as well. So I want to begin with a short mindfulness practice that can be used in your life. So people often hear mindfulness and they think chilling out, some sort of calm Zen practice, something you have to do every day. But it's really a set of attentional skills, a group of different ways of using our focus that is going to enhance our well-being, our effectiveness, and our stress resilience. And this is a very short practice that we can use to start developing that. And we can use this in our working life. We can use this in our home life. We can practice this as a formal practice, sitting and doing it that way, or we can do it in the moment in life. So for this one, if you can find a comfortable position to sit in to practice. So if you're listening to this whilst doing something else in your house, it might be great to come here right now and to practice this together. So finding a comfortable position to sit, and you can close your eyes or you can just gently focus your eyes in front of you. And the practice we're going to do is called dropping anchor. And the idea behind this is that emotions and stress are like a storm, and this storm can pull us around. It can pull us into problematic behaviors, ineffectiveness, overwhelm, at the worst end of the scale, burnout and kind of mental health challenges. And so we want tools to help us stay grounded, resourced, and resilient in the storm. We can't just get rid of the storm. It's part of our evolved nature. We have this fight, flight, or freeze response. We can't just get rid of it. But what we can do is learn to ground and center and resource ourselves so we can move through it more effectively. So this is for that reason. So sitting comfortably, and the first step is to acknowledge what is going on in your body and mind right now. So scan through your body from your head to your toes and notice what you're feeling right now. What do you notice in your head? What do you notice in your chest, your abdomen, arms and legs? So acknowledging the physical sensations and emotional feelings. And then checking in with your mind. What do you notice in your mind? What's your mind saying right now? Are you planning? Are you judging? Are you analyzing? Are you focused on what we're doing? Are you thinking about what's happened earlier or what's happening next? Just notice what your mind is saying right now and what images are in your mind. So this first step, we just notice and name this. So you can silently in your mind name this. You can say, I notice I'm feeling calm, relaxed, or I notice I'm feeling stressed, anxious, worried. So just notice and name those emotions. And this is one of the most effective tools to manage difficult emotions, is to step back, observe, and name them. Can even reduce your stress response if you're arachnophobic and you approach a spider. So notice and name your emotional response will bring down the stress a little bit. And then the second step is to come back to your body. So connect with your body. So take a few deep breaths, push your feet into the ground, straighten up your spine. You can stretch, you can move, you can do anything that gets you in contact with your body so that you can take action in the face of stress. And then the final step is to engage in what you're doing, to look around you, notice where you are, notice what you can hear, this place you're in right now, and the task you're doing. So listening to this presentation, hopefully engaging with this and learning some tools that are going to be helpful to you. So bringing your focus back, refocusing into the present moment. So that would be the tool to use, to start practicing and to use to help you manage stress. From there, we're going to move into the first pillar of stress resilience. So we're going to move quite quickly today. We only have half an hour. We're going to do one practice for each of these steps. So meaning and purpose means that we're in contact with our core values and our goals that reflect our values. So we know why we're working, what we care about, what type of person we want to be at work, what we want to achieve. And we have that really in mind so that we can set goals and act in a way that reflects that every day. And if we're really in contact with values, it does amazing things with the stress response. So it reduces cortisol levels, it improves heart rate variability and reduces it lowers blood pressure, and it increases motivation, it increases pain tolerance even. So values have a lot of benefit, and they're really qualities of action, they're directions we want to travel in our life. So what we're going to do now is grab our notepads and just do a little bit of values journaling. So we're going to write some core values around work. We're going to then think about what the actions are that reflect them, and then we're going to set one goal for this week that reflects those. So this is really how we come into connection with meaning and purpose. So, just pausing for a second, taking a few deep breaths, and with your notepad, thinking about your work that you're going into, your studying that you've been doing, the career you hope to have, the working world that you've been researching and looking at. And what would you say are your core values? What matters to you in work? And I'll list a few, but really to bring out your own ones here. So do you value being focused and being highly concentrated in your work? Do you value being committed and dedicated? Are you a team player? Is it very much the social side of the work that matters to you? Do you value creativity, problem solving? Do you value being very systematic and organized? Do you value assertiveness, developing leadership skills? Do you value being patient and calm under pressure? Is it about mastery and getting more and more skillful? So what qualities jump out to you as you think about your studies and your work, and thinking about the times where you've had the most satisfaction and enjoyment out of your studies or your work? What were the qualities in that moment? So I'll let you start to write that. So journal that, write, my core value is being focused and deeply engaged in my work. And then write a few more values. And as you journal about these values, also think about what the actions look like. So if you value being highly focused, what does that look like in your current context? So does that mean, dedicating specific time to searching for work? Does it mean dedicating specific time for your studies and whatever you're working on, and being highly focused and effective at that? What does it look like to live this value in action? So you can write a little about that. And I'll ask a couple of questions now just to prompt this, but keep journaling about your values and your workplace values specifically. So what would you like to stand for in the face of challenges? So if we think about this highly stressful world we're in right now with this pandemic, these new working habits, working on screens, not being able to connect with people, in quite the same way. What would you want to stand for at this time? You know, in your work and in your life, what matters to you? Would you want to be supportive and being there for those around you? Would you want to be really dedicated, even in the face of these difficulties? What matters to you right now? And then who do you admire in the work that you're moving into, or your working life, your studying life, the direction you're going? Who's someone you admire? And what qualities do they have? You know, what do you admire about them? Is it that they are incredibly dedicated and motivated? Is it that they're very creative and very able to just come up with novel ideas and problem solving skills? What is it about them that you admire? So starting to just pull out those values that this person lives. And so if we can get really clear on these values, they can support us during adversity and stress. So if you look at anyone throughout human history that's done anything difficult, lived through any kind of challenge, they would have been deeply connected with their values. So people like Nelson Mandela, Viktor Frankl, you know, all these people throughout history that lived through adversity, they knew their core value and they put it into action each day, and they came back to it and they reflected on it. And this writing exercise, just journaling about your values and the actions that reflect them, has been shown in research to have an effect up to 10 years later. People still can draw upon this to help them at stressful times. So it really is a powerful tool, one that you can keep using as you move into your career and during difficult times. And we can use it to help us with, you know, things like the urge to procrastinate or do habits that don't serve us when we're stressed. You know, we can check in with the drop-in anchor practice that we did at the beginning and notice that urge to procrastinate, and then we can commit to our value, come back to it, and then take action. And this is something that will really support us in being effective at the direction we want to go in life, you know, and working with any difficulties that come up. So the final task on this one is, what's one immediate goal you can set for yourself today or this week that reflects this core value? So, you know, if it's to be focused, you know, can I dedicate a period of time to work on planning my career or applying for work or connecting and networking? You know, what's one task I can do that I can tick off? So values are direction we go in, goals are destinations that we can tick off. What's one thing we can tick off today that will take us in that direction? So write that down now, and then we want to make a commitment to that to work on. Okay, so the second pillar of stress resilience is social connections. So how connected we are to people in our work and in our life is going to really predict how well we do with stress. So they've done studies where they send people into hospitals who are going to go and get surgery, and they send one group of people on their own, one group of people with someone they don't know but with them, and one group of people with one person they know and love and care about, who will hold their hand while they go through the process. And that final group show much reduced cortisol reaction, so their stress level is much lower. This hormone that is often a marker for stress is not a bad hormone. It's not, we need cortisol, but in high levels chronically over a long time, it predicts difficulties with stress. And this will be much lower in people who go into adversity, like the surgery with someone they care about. You know, it's going to reduce inflammation in the body. It's going to improve, again, the physical markers for stress. So being connected to people. Clearly, for most people, it's the most important thing in their life, as well as the people around them and how connected they are, including at work. So we can really focus on this pillar. You know, often when we're stressed and burnt out, we start disconnecting. You know, a big part of depression and burnout is to disconnect. And this is at a time when we really need people, you know, the most. So actually, if we can keep connecting with people during adversity, we're going to protect ourselves against stress over the long term. Even if our mind is saying, you know, you can't connect to anyone right now, you know, you need to be on your own, you you're too tired or you're not doing enough. And actually, even on this call, 1 in 4 people are going to be experiencing a mental health challenge right now, anxiety or depression. And I am sure those people who are experiencing that will be having the urge to disconnect. And so if you take one thing from today, it's don't listen to that urge. Use dropping anchor to notice those thoughts that say, oh, you can't connect with people right now. Might be very critical thoughts in your mind. And notice those thoughts, let them come and go like a radio, and then start to reach out and connect to people. Connect to the easiest person you can, first of all, and then build it up from there. If you don't have the right people in your life right now, start to reach out and find those people for you, because we can always build stronger connections. We can always find our people out there, and that will be, one of the most protective things for stress. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set you 3 challenges around social connections to increase this area of our life. So we're going to send 3 messages after this workshop. So I want you to write down these 3 challenges, and then after this session, at some point today, send out these text messages or online messages or phone calls, or even go old school, go old fashioned, get your note, you get your letter writing kit out, get your quill out, and actually write a letter to someone. Whatever way you want to connect right now, use a mode to connect to people. So the 3 messages we want to do. Number 1 is gratitude for someone who has supported us during our studies and work as well, or studies at some point. So someone who was there for you at a difficult time, someone who inspired you, someone who, materially supported you, whatever it might be, some form of support that you had during this time. We'll write to that person in a way that feels authentic to you. So finding the language that works for you and expressing gratitude, appreciation to this person, and being specific, why was it helpful? What was important about that? Number 2 is to connect with one of your friends right now, and you're probably doing this already, so if you are, increase it, but connecting with one of your friends right now who's in the same sort of stage as you. So they're either looking for, building their career or finishing their studies, and or whatever stage you're at. Connect with someone in the same stage, and set some goals together. So accountability is going to increase our chance of achieving a goal. So if you write a goal down, you're 33% more likely to achieve it. If you make a commitment with other people, it goes up even higher, much higher. So can we make a commitment with others? Together we're going to block out this time and work on this task together. A little bit like a gym buddy, you have this accountability. And, we're going to then be more likely to do this thing, and then keep connecting, keep supporting each other as you go on. And then the final one is to think in your life right now, think in your circles of close friends and wider network, who do you think is struggling right now in this current world, in this pandemic, at this stage in their life with the stresses of moving from the world of studies into work, or finishing your studies. Who do you think is struggling right now? And reach out and connect to them today. Offer some support, just organize the talk, do a socially distanced walk outside, whatever it might be. Meet up with this person and connect in some way. So I'll go through those again. So 1, gratitude to someone who supported you. 1, to someone in the same stage, making some goals and accountability around what you're working on. And the 3rd one is to reach out and to find someone who's struggling and to connect with them. And gratitude is such a support for our mental health. It's shown again to have all these positive benefits on our markers for stress, including, our telomeres. So our DNA has caps on it, which are telomeres. It's a little bit like a shoelace, it has the cap on it. And as we get older and as we go through stress, they degrade and they start to fray. And actually everything we're talking about today repairs the telomeres. to some degree, including gratitude. So all of these things will have physical benefits for our life as well. You know, you add years to your life if you have meaning and purpose and social connection, and you can enjoy your life more, you know, doing these things. So, you know, there's so many reasons to make time for all of this. So moving into the final pillar for stress management. So we've got number one, meaning and purpose. Number two, social connections. And number three is lifestyle supports and habits. So how do we build our life up so that we support ourselves? So what you've probably found in your own life, you know, during exam times or, you know, stressful projects, or, you know, if you're working, you know, during deadlines and difficult times, at those points, we get really focused and we may work very hard. We may procrastinate, of course, but often we get incredibly focused and we start to neglect the areas in our life that support us and nourish us. And actually, it's at that point we need these things the most, because we become less creative the more stressed and focused on a single thing we become, you know. So when we're working on a deadline and stress builds up and we work more and more hours of the day, our effectiveness and our creativity go down. So what we need to do is build in supportive habits that are going to help us. So I'm going to mention some core areas from the psychology research that are evidence-based habits we can do in our life to reduce our stress or manage stress more effectively. And they're kind of common sense, so you'll know that, you know, none of these are going to be big surprises. But let me just list them, and then we want to think about our life and how we live in these. So, you know, number one is exercise, of course, physical exercise and movement particularly. It doesn't have to be going to the gym or something formal, but movement of any sort is going to help us discharge our fight, flight, freeze response that we get with stress. So, you know, exercise. Then the next one is diet, of course, sleep, time outside in nature, and then engagement in playful activities, hobbies, things outside our key work area. And then we can add to this the values, meaning and purpose, and social connections. But these 5 areas are really key lifestyle habits. So think about those areas and imagine like a dartboard with a bullseye. And the bullseye right in the middle is when we're really prioritizing these aspects of our life. We're making time for them. And I'll go through them again in a minute. So if we're right in the bullseye, it means with exercise, we've got a routine in place, we're committed to it. We may slip now and again, but we recommit, and we keep that going over the long run, and it supports us. Whereas off the bullseye might be like, you know I should be exercising or moving, but I just can't quite be bothered, or I'm too busy, something like that. So we've got exercise or movement, we've got diet, we've got sleep, we've got time outside in nature and sunlight as well, which in this world right now is quite a difficult one. And then we've got playful activities, sort of hobbies. So playful activities is an interesting one. You know, when we're really focused on something, often we think, oh, I don't have time for those playful things, but we're going to be far more creative if we do those playful, enjoyable activities, because creativity needs periods of high focus and then incubation. So high focus is when we're on task, we're really problem solving, better to do it on paper, better to do it out of the brain and get it out there. And we're really focused on something, you know, like solving a complicated maths problem on a board or something like that. We're really focusing on it. Then incubation is when we step away and we do something completely different. And then our unconscious brain is working on the stuff still, and often we'll get the insights at that point. So we need this. So think about that bullseye, and of that of that darts board, which one of those areas are you furthest away from the bullseye? Do we need to make more time for? Is it exercise you're neglecting? Sleep, are you not getting enough sleep? When we're younger, it doesn't make a difference, but I can tell you as you get older, you notice it more and more, and sleep counts over the decades. It's important. You know, it's not, you build up patterns of sleep over longer periods of time. So to get that habit in place, as boring as it might sound, doesn't mean we can't have fun, but you know, to at least prioritize it some of the time is going to be so useful. You know, time outside, are we just getting stuck indoors all the time just now and not getting any time in nature? Really that kind of stuff is going to be key. And then the playful time. So which one of those are you neglecting? And then what we want to do is to schedule in one of that activity this in the next 2 weeks. So in the next 2 weeks, when are you going to start building these things in? What kind of exercise and movement are you going to do? Are you going to get up and walk around more, do some exercise in your house if you can't get out to a gym, or something more? Are you going to prioritize sleep a little bit more? Gradual changes with sleep. Diet, are you going to kind of re-kick into a sort of diet program? What are we going to schedule in the next 2 weeks? I want to schedule in 3 things now. So that's the first one, is the one self-care activity relating to those areas that you're going to start working on, relating to the one you're furthest off the bullseye. Number 2 is a task you've been procrastinating on. When are you going to do 5 minutes on it? The 5-minute rule. If we're struggling to get started with something, then just set a time to do 5 minutes and just start to chip away at it. After 5 minutes, we can move on or we can keep going, but at least we're starting to get going. So one task you've been procrastinating on that you're going to do 5 minutes for. And then the last one to schedule in is in the next 2 weeks. When are you going to take 20 minutes to come back to all the material we've covered today and do another bit of reflection and prioritize it in your life? So they're the 3 things. One self-care activity related to those areas, 5 minutes on a task you've been procrastinating on, and then 20 minutes to reflect on these 3 pillars, your life, how you prioritize these and make room for them. So just a little bit of a summary now, and then we're going to move into our Q&A. So stress management is really a very personal thing. So you need to take ownership of this and build up this yourself, your own habits around this. But we covered these 3 areas. We covered meaning and purpose, and we covered social connections, and then we covered lifestyle supports. So these are 3 core things to think about, reflect on, build up the priority you give to them, and give them equal focus as you move into your career and into your work. They're going to support you ongoingly in your career. We also covered dropping anchor. So ACE, acknowledge your thoughts and feelings, come back to your body, engage in what you're doing. It's a very short mindfulness practice that you can use every day. You can link it with stuff you're doing already, like brushing your teeth, or you can use it in the moment when you feel stressed, when you have difficulties, and then you can, re-engage into your life and take effective action. So that's my core sort of headlines on stress resilience. Stress is really when the task demands, we feel that our internal resources are being exceeded by the task demand. So our internal and external resources, we don't feel they're up to the task demands. We're then going to get stress. So we want to apply the short mindfulness practices and then these 3 pillars to support us and to help us through that. So I really hope that there is some stuff of use here for you as you move into your careers and as you progress on in your life. I wish you all the best. Reach out to people at these times, and I think we're going to do a bit of Q&A hopefully now. So look forward to hearing any questions. Really welcome anything on this.
Hello.
Hi, Nisha.
Hi, Jonny. Hi. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm from Rate My Placement, and I just want to say a massive thank you for that. That was so inspiring and motivational. So thanks. I've got my 3 texts ready to send out to my friends and family, so I will be doing that after. So I've been looking at the questions coming in, and I've got a few of my own too. So to start us off, I've got, what are the physical health benefits of mindfulness? What does it do?
Yeah, the physical benefits. So really, I've linked to a few of them as we've gone on. So a lot of them are around the stress resilient stuff. So the markers for stress show up in things like our blood pressure, in inflammation, in heart rate variability, and all of these have a link to any illnesses we might be genetically vulnerable to. So there is a link there with health. And then, they're really around kind of attentional skills as well. So we develop this prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain, which is able to regulate our emotional brain, the limbic system. And the better we get at that, the more we can actually engage in physical practices. So we can get more benefit from exercise, things like that, because it's kind of easier to keep those habits going if we've strengthened our attentional skills. So there's stuff around stress and kind of inflammation is really the big problem that we get from stress that then creates illness. And we're going to reduce that if we engage in mindfulness. And then it's going to help us with positive health habits that are going to be good for our physical health.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, that kind of brings me on. I mean, I know it's the last few months, definitely. Everyone's been working online, so it's all focusing on a computer screen, and yeah, it's just kind of what advice have you got to students who need to switch off? And yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think we all struggle with this. We're all addicted to our screens anyway, and it's become even harder right now to do that. But actually, they are so chronically stressful. So you can do a study where you give people a little bit of negative news in the beginning of the day, and 7 or 8 hours later you still see the impact of that on your body. So we're not designed for two things that we get from screens: so social comparison and kind of threat-based news on a scale that we're not used to. So we're used to, our brain has evolved for small groups, so 5 and then up to 30 or 50, and knowing everyone in that tribe, in that group, and handling small threats that come up from time to time in that group. We're not designed for ongoing threats and ongoing social comparison. So it's incredibly stressful, but they're incredibly addictive. So they were designed using the same technology as Las Vegas slot machines. The people who've designed all this technology are the smartest people in our world, and they know all the psychology. They know how to make this stuff addictive. So we have to get a strong incentive to break that habit. So the number one is the values. So self-care. It is not going to be good for me if I'm always engaged with this stuff. So then I need to put it down. Okay, so what can I do? I can surf the urge to look at technology. So using that drop-in anchor practice and connecting with this value of how I support myself, I can surf that urge and go and do something else that's going to support me instead. Then we can use physical boundaries to turn our phone off, charge it up somewhere else, turn our screen off, go outside. And it's going to be hard because we're addicted to this stuff. So we'll have a bit of withdrawal when we start doing this. So gradual change is a big one as well. Don't go cold turkey necessarily. Just reduce it like a little bit over time, and then be kind to ourselves, because we're all addicted to this. I get hooked on my phone as much as anyone, but I know the impact. So I try and recommit to put it down, have time off it, engage in the news, engage in what's happening in the world, but keep it contained. Don't do it all the time, because our brain just can't handle that. So yeah, that'd be some of my thoughts. And if we want to change any behavior, we need something to add in instead. So if I'm not going to be on screens and on my phone, what am I going to do instead that I value? What hobby, what people, what am I going to do that's important instead of this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so important to have time away from, the kind of virtual world as we see right now.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you talked about the values there and, making sure you've got your core values. Is there any values that you think trump other values, or is it very personal to yourself? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's another interesting one to reflect on. I mean, I think actually it's your personal values trump all others. So the thing with values is we choose them. They're stuff we willingly choose in the moment. Of course, they're influenced by our upbringing and our life before it, but we get to choose them. And that's why they're so powerful. You can have people who are very goal focused for decades, and then they experience burnout, or they feel very disillusioned when they achieve the goals. I mean, you see this all the time, don't you? You see a celebrity that, you know, gets right to the top and they achieve everything they've ever wanted, and then they have a breakdown, or at worst they kill themselves. And this happens a lot. And what that often means is our goals don't reflect our values. So we've been working away at goals that reflect other people's values, things that aren't important, and we've lost contact with that. So I would say definitely it's our values are important. I know which values for me trump things, you know, given the work I do, you know, I value kindness, I value focus though as well. I think being focused, if you want to enjoy anything in life, you have to be present, you have to be really engaged in what you're doing. We know the most enjoyable times in our life are when we're deeply focused and engaged in what we're doing. So focus is incredibly important. And then courage for me, you know, courage is such a key one. And courage is not fearlessness. Courage is feeling fear and doing the difficult thing even with fear, you know, and being there and present even with fear, relevant to anyone going for interviews and all that kind of thing. You know, you're not going to suddenly turn the fear response off because it's baked into our DNA, but we can be courageous in the face of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's a great answer. You also mentioned in your presentation that, you know, 1 in 4 people, I think, they like suffer from mental health issues. Have you got any advice to students specifically of like what they can do to help this, or speak to
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everything we've talked about will help for sure. Everything today. Probably number 1 is the reaching out. So if we're very anxious, then we worry about connecting because we think we might embarrass ourselves, or we might be rejected or something like that. You know, if we're depressed, it's more like we feel we're not worthy, or we start to get we lose sense of connection with the world. So we don't want to connect. So number 1 is actually don't listen to those thoughts and feelings that tell you to isolate. You know, notice those thoughts in your head and notice them like a radio playing, and then go and connect with someone. Put all your attention on that person and be really with them. So that would be number 1. You know, everything we've done today though, so all the lifestyle stuff, you know, they're going to help with depression, diet, sleep. You know, if we're feeling anxious or depressed, go back to the basics. Very boring, harder to do when you're younger. You know, as a student, I wouldn't have done a lot of these things. So, you know, just small changes. You're not going to totally change your lifestyle and sleep a lot more, but can we make a little bit of incremental change? And if we are experiencing a mental health challenge or crisis, then really prioritize these things, and prioritize your sleep, your exercise, your diet, social connections, and then self-compassion, you know, how we treat ourselves. You know, we can be so hard on ourselves when we're experiencing mental health challenges. So what would we say to a friend going through it? How would we support them? And then turn that to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Just taking a step back and then, looking at your surroundings, as you said. And you mentioned sleep there. Have you got any advice for students? I remember the long nights, you know, trying to finish those essays back in the day. Have you got any advice for students who are looking for a good night's sleep?
I mean, there's a lot of different things. The simple stuff that you look for: cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, loads of resources online for that. So that's a lot of good stuff. But really, I would say, you know, there's 2 things that I come up in my work with students. It's like adjusting to a new pattern. You know, you can't stay up chatting to your friends anymore and all night and playing, you know, doing stuff online all night and all that kind of thing, or going out party. I'm saying online because obviously we're in this weird world where you can't go out so much, but going out as well. You know, so, okay, gradual change, make gradual changes on that one. And then for insomnia and difficulties with sleep, work with the rumination. So how do we notice our mind worrying, ruminating, going over the past, and give it something gentle to focus on? So audio book, radio, music, just a gratitude alphabet. Go A to Z, something you feel grateful for each letter, you know, something gentle to focus on.
Yeah, oh, brilliant top tips there. And you also mentioned diet as well. How important is that, even in reducing stress? And is there any particular foods that you would recommend?
Yeah, massively. I mean, some people recover from depression just by changing their diet, and there's a huge link with inflammation in anxiety and depression. If you make animals, I mean, they're so cruel to animals in the psychology research, but if you make animals, inflamed, chronically inflamed, they'll show markers of anxiety and depression. So the simplest is the Mediterranean diet. It's the one that has the most research on, easiest to follow. Basically just increase it, all the basic stuff, increase your fruit and veg, simplest. That's going to be key. So Mediterranean diet and just gradual changes. We don't need to do massive changes, just add a bit more in here and there, little bits and pieces. That would be my single idea on that for
definitely
time.
increasing your oils and your nuts and everything like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so if you've got any money, spend it on that. And then I think there's a few questions about apps and things like that to help with mindfulness and stress. Do you recommend anything?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like Headspace, a lot of people like Calm. You have to pay for those ones, so that there's a choice there. 10% Happier as well, another one. And they all have kind of free versions. Insight Timer is probably the best free one that has like a lot of free material. So Insight Timer. My website, the Mindfulness Circle, and my YouTube page, the Mindfulness Circle, I've got lots of guided practices, lots of stuff there for free. So you can find the free stuff out there. Acceptance and commitment therapy is one of my main mindfulness modalities, and there's lots of free guided meditations for that. You can pay. Sometimes paying for something like Headspace, you might be more dedicated. You've invested that money, you might be more likely to stick to it. My sense of mindfulness is it will be great if you do 5 to 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes, but at least 5 to 10 minutes. But if you're struggling to do that, integrate it into what you're doing. So have a mindful shower, eat a mindful meal once a week, have a mindful cup of tea or coffee, really focus on it, savor it, be present, practice all those skills. And then, at least we're making time for something that will be a benefit. Drop an anchor like we did. You can do that just 5 times a day, 3 times a day. And it's amazing how we all make time for other things in our life, but we struggle to do exercise and mental health practices. So some of it is just doing the grit of like making yourself do that. So accountability with other people, reminders, setting reminders on your phone, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, thank you for those apps. And we've got a question from Amy. He said, I'd love to hear from you about your role as a therapist and your experience within that.
Yeah, I mean, I love my work as a therapist. It's a great honor to connect with people and to work on building skills to improve our mental health. The type of therapy I do is acceptance and commitment therapy and compassion focused therapy. So it's very much values based, mindfulness based, compassion based, a lot of supportive work, and then moving that into action. And there's nothing better in the world than seeing someone who is deep in depression start to move into their life and come out of that place. And I have my own history with mental health challenges, so I'm incredibly motivated to help people. So I love it, I absolutely love it, and it's wonderful. People go, how do you listen to 8 hours a day of people telling you about their pain? There's nothing more meaningful if you're hopefully making a difference. So yeah, I love it.
Oh no, brilliant. Sounds like a great job, and benefits a lot of people. So no, thank you for that. So I'll just see. We've got a few minutes left. So I've got a question. So obviously now it's winter is here, and it's getting dark outside, and people not wanting to go outside, especially for students. With the coronavirus happening, is there any advice that you give for students to help them with their mindfulness?
Yeah, and the sort of going outside. I mean, the mindfulness side of it, we can do anything. We can practice that in any context, just in your room, anywhere you are, you just bring attention into the moment and you focus on what you're doing. So very simple. But I guess to get outside, just do the smallest things we can do. Even looking at a plant has benefits for our stress response. Watching David Attenborough, maybe not his new one on Netflix, because that's incredibly stressful, looking at climate change and things like that. But a lot of those nature programs are going to help us, looking out of a window, getting out into a shared garden, then getting out into community green space, then going further, doing like what we can.
Yeah.
And sunlight, if nothing else, open your window.
Yeah, oh no, that is great advice there. And then we have another question from Emma, who's asked, how can employers help support their employees' mental well-being and stress?
Oh, such a good question. So, I mean, I think, having time to reflect and, think about this at top levels, then opening up the dialogue amongst the company and modeling that actually, I think these workplace habits are changing actually, which is wonderful. But if we look back in the past, there was no room to show vulnerability. It was always push on, do more, don't show that you're struggling. And that's why there are huge levels of burnout in certain industries. 1 in 4 bankers in London were experiencing burnout in the 90s when they did one study. It's still really high. Scandinavia builds burnout into their business models, expecting it to happen. We shouldn't be living like this. So some of it is having the dialogue, having the space. It's supporting people who are overworked and then helping people who are underworked as well, because that is as stressful. Boredom can be more stressful than being overworked, as long as it's not too far overworked. So it's really keeping these dialogues open and a space to explore it. And then, supporting the employees, MobGroup, we go in and we do movement, we do diet, we do mental health stuff, we do, all kinds of coaching. So it's getting that kind of support, either doing that in-house and building that up in-house, or getting some help with that, and just really prioritizing it. And, the companies I've seen do this best is when the people in the leadership roles are open and honest about this as well. And they share that, I struggled at this point and I did this and this helped me. We were so embarrassed to talk about this stuff, but it's happening in epidemic levels. So we shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about this, and we should be open and then moving into like, what can we do? What actions can we take?
Great answer. Well, that actually brings us to an end. I mean, I could listen to this all day. That really inspired and motivated me. So thank you so much for all that. And as you said, you're from the MobGroup, so can students go onto your website and?
So either MobGroup or my website, the Mindfulness Circle. So my own individual stuff. I work with MobGroup. I teach mindfulness for them corporately. So they've got a lot there. And then we're on Instagram. So either MobGroup or Mindfulness Circle on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All that stuff. LinkedIn, and lots of resources, sharing lots of ideas there. YouTube as well. I've got loads of videos on this stuff there. So check that all out. The Mindfulness Circle. And get in touch if you have any questions about this stuff as well.
Well, thank you very much for that. And hopefully, reconnect very soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Nisha, and thank you everyone for your participation and great questions and your engagement. Thank you.